I'll tell you what I am concerned about, and that is if Congress and the judiciary doesn't do something soon about the FBI and the Justice Department, we are on our way to becoming a fascist nation and a police state. Our founding fathers never intended us to have a national police force who could just decide to go after people they didn't like. And that's what RICO and mail fraud and some of these other statutes have been used for. Something's got to be done to change that around, or we will not be a free people much longer.
So there we have it.
There we have it.
So last week, Vic, when we were talking our last episode, we had talked about everything with Lucas. He had his press conference. He said he didn't do it. You guys had the grand jury, and ultimately, you know, your ability to have him in the grand jury was not extended. So he had to go back with the Rangers. And I know you messaged me earlier today. What you wanted to talk about was what was going on behind the scenes. They had the big brass meeting. They had Lucas away. So what was transpiring now to go after you? Like, what in specific was the tactic? And what we've talked about a little bit in the past was that they were going to use the media to manipulate the public opinion against you.
Yes.
And that started with a couple key people. And one of them is Tom Pauken. So Vic, tell me who Tom Pauken was and what his role was in bringing this thing together and getting Channel 8 in.
Tom Pauken was sort of a muckety-muck with the Republican Party. He had some kind of position with him. I can't remember the title of it, but he got paid. But mainly what he did was go around and fix problems for the Republican Party. And I was a problem for the Republican Party.
You were a thorn.
I was a thorn because I had such a broad base. And I had a base into the fundamentalist Christian community because I'm an ordained Baptist minister. I pastored 2 churches in my early career, and churches were inviting me every month. I was preaching somewhere in every denomination. Every denomination there was: Assembly of God, Baptist, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, Lutheran. I even gave the commencement speech at the Mary Hardin Baylor graduation in 1985, right about the time this was going on. Yeah, this was in May when all this was going. April and May, and it was in May that I gave the commencement speech. And
Cool.
It was then I already knew that I was probably going to be arrested, although it didn't happen for over a year later.
Right.
I said something about it in that commencement speech. I broke the story during that commencement speech.
Wow.
And my commencement speech to those students graduating was, you have the courage to do what's right, and do it. Don't take the easy road. Don't take the politically expedient road. Don't take the road that, this might get me promoted even though it's wrong. No.
Right.
Take the narrow road. Do the right thing. And that's what I was doing. And so, they started coming after me. They had Rangers and ex-Rangers appearing on the Tom Pauken show because he also owned a radio station here in Waco. If you want to hear Lynn Woolley talk about that some, go back and listen to one of our episodes with Lynn Woolley. He knew Tom Pauken. Matter of fact, he was instrumental in getting Tom Pauken.
He said he felt guilty about it.
Yeah.
About helping him get his station.
He's the one who found that station for sale for Pauken to buy. KRZI. Crazy radio. And I tell you, they were crazy. And not crazy in a good way. They were crazy in a Salem witch hunt kind of way.
Ooh.
Yeah, that kind of crazy.
So was he a radio owner and he was a DJ? So he owned the station and he DJ'd on it?
He didn't DJ. He did the political stuff.
Gotcha.
He interviewed all kinds of people that hated me. Anybody that had an axe to grind with me, it was on his show. Somewhere, because I saw it a couple months ago, there's a audio tape of
I've got it.
You've got it.
I've got it, of him talking with some of the Rangers, ex-Rangers.
Let's play some of that.
Sure.
Maybe you can find a clip to stick in right here.
Sure.
Let me just, what I'll do is ask you a couple of questions. Why don't you just kind of ID yourself for the station, if you would.
Okay. I'm Bob Prince, Sergeant of Texas Rangers.
Okay. Sergeant Prince, according to the Waco Tribune Herald, District Attorney, McLennan County District Attorney Vic Feazell has said that the Texas Rangers allowed the defense attorneys to provide Henry Lucas with information about one of these murder cases, in particular the Arkansas murder case, so that when Lucas was questioned by Arkansas prosecutors, he was able to parrot back information about the murder. Would you respond to the district attorney's charge that the Texas Rangers allowed the defense attorneys to have inside information prior to the questioning of Henry Lucas with regard to an Arkansas murder case?
Okay. It's absolutely erroneous that we would feed the defense attorney any information, or Lucas any information concerning that case. We have absolutely no interest or authority in an Arkansas homicide area.
Prior to last week and all of the publicity surrounding Henry Lucas in McLennan County, had either District Attorney Vic Feazell or State Attorney General Jim Maddox ever contacted you, or had their offices contacted you with regard to alleged discrepancies in the Ranger investigation?
We have not had any contact from Mr. Feazell, both in the past or currently, concerning these allegations.
His office hasn't contacted you this week?
No, his office still has not contacted us concerning any information he has. The only information we have about Feazell's allegation is what we've heard through the news media.
Okay, thank you. This is Captain Bob Mitchell, who's the commander, Company F, of the Texas Rangers, which oversees the Rangers in 45 counties in central Texas. Captain Mitchell, the district attorney here in McLennan County, Vic Feazell, has been very critical of the role of the Texas Ranger Task Force in the handling of the Henry Lee Lucas case. How would you respond to the district attorney's criticisms?
I don't see how he could be very critical of us due to the fact that he has never contacted any member of the Texas Department of Public Safety. That is, any member of the task force or the task force employees, supervisors. And that covers from my position all the way through Colonel Jim Adams, our director. So far as we're concerned, his allegations are totally unfounded.
Captain Mitchell, right now there's a McLennan County grand jury investigating this Lucas controversy. What's your attitude towards yourself or any other Texas Ranger coming before the grand jury to testify on the matter?
We would love to go before the grand jury and present our side of the story, and hopefully we'll be asked to.
But yeah, he was interviewing the ex-Rangers. He was interviewing the mayor, some of the city council, anybody that would come on and say something bad about him. And at the same time, Jim Adams had his PR machine going. He was getting interviews for Bob Prince, and
was it the Statesman?
This is the Waco Tribune Herald, and he said, Vic. He said, so the Waco Tribune Herald is saying statements critical of the Rangers over the Henry Lee Lucas investigation made by District Attorney Vic Feazell are erroneous and represent an attack on law enforcement. How many times have we heard that? Represents an attack on law enforcement. Why? He's just against law enforcement.
Yeah.
Everybody spoke out against them. And that was their talking point. Whether
Right.
it was Prince,
It's absolutely erroneous that
whether it's Captain Mitchell.
So far as we're concerned, his allegations are totally unfounded.
Whether it was Boutwell, whether it was the DA down in Georgetown, he's against law enforcement. That's what they always said. And listen to this quote by Prince.
I'm
He
ready.
is quoted as saying, "It's not only an attack on me, It's an attack on the entire judicial system, an attack on the entire Ranger Service, an attack on the entire law enforcement community across the United States, and an attack on prosecutors and grand juries.
Wow.
I was a prosecutor.
I would say he must think he's real special to be that well connected and important.
Yeah.
Or he thinks they're associated with him.
Man, you point the finger at Bob Prince, then you're against, well, I'll tell you,
Everybody.
one of those retired Rangers said I was against America, motherhood, and apple pie.
Crazy.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't throw in baseball.
Ah,
Yeah, Prince uses the word entire here 3 times. The entire judicial system. Well, George Allen was part of that judicial system. He's the one who signed the orders. He says I was against law enforcement. Well, Sheriff Jack Harwell, who's a hero in the miniseries Waco, he was law enforcement. He says the entire law enforcement community across the United States, and an attack on prosecutors and grand juries. So I guess I was attacking myself too.
yeah.
And attacking my grand jury. And Attorney General Jim Maddox, he's law enforcement.
Yeah.
So come on, Bob Prince.
It's just sad.
So Prince is further quoted saying, Feazell has not talked with a member of the task force concerning unethical investigations. He has not talked to any member of the Texas Department of Public Safety or Texas Rangers, get this, concerning discrepancies he has. Prince is also quoted as saying, but in my estimation, Lucas has killed many, many, many people.
Right.
How many he's killed, I'll never try to guess. Well, I'll
Right.
guess 1, maybe 3.
Yeah. So what was happening though is, so Tom Hawken was bringing the Rangers onto his show, and that's where that quote came from, right? Was from one of the shows.
Well, that quote was on that show, but it was also printed in the Waco Tribune-Herald.
Crazy that the Trib would do it. It's like there was these sleeper cells that the deep state could activate that were these media outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did, is they activated them and said, hey, we're going to need you to start spreading this to try to get the public opinion against Feazell.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they did. The same way they were using them to get public opinion against the Davidians.
Right.
I mean, the stuff that was coming out against the Davidians during that siege was just pulled out of their butts.
Right.
It was awful. It had nothing to do with truth. It was just slander, 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 slander. But it fits into the way they do things.
You got to manufacture consent. You have to have the consent to make it okay.
You do, and you dehumanize the victim so that no one will care that they're dead. Oh, he needed killing. Oh, they were a bunch of nuts. Oh, they needed killing. You know? If those guys had never come to my office to talk to me, I probably wouldn't even have known they were out there.
Right.
There weren't any trouble. I remember every once in a while I'd hear somebody say, well, they're over at Mount Carmel again, counting down the days for the world to end. And in Waco, there's a nice neighborhood that has a street in it called Mount Carmel. I thought they were talking about
the street
over on that nice street. And I'm going, why would anybody over there be counting down the days till the world ends? I didn't even know about the Davidians yet until after I was DA and they showed up at my office one day.
This is wild. Now, do you know where the compound is? Where is it in relation to Waco? Is it? Someone said it was like north. Is it northeast? Like Robinson area?
No, Robinson's kind of south of Waco. It's north of Waco.
North of Waco.
It's a little north of Waco, but not very far out of town.
And I think you can go out there too, right? They just have like a plaque out there, a commemorative plaque, right?
Yeah, there may be a building out there now. There's been some fundraising to build some kind of little meeting room. But the last time I was out there, and see, you know me, Jonathan. That's why I have you drive everywhere. You turned me around twice. I'm lost, man. And I've always been that way. So I've been out there, but I'd have to Google it to get back. So if you want to know where it is, Google it.
Yeah, really? You just Google it.
Google it. We didn't have Google back then.
That's funny. Well, anywho, so they're out there manufacturing the consent of the public to try to get you. And what we know is that Tom Pauken made 2 phone calls to someone up in Dallas, a gentleman by the name of Charles Duncan. And we've talked about Duncan in the past as being with Channel 8, and he's the reporter. And we wondered how he even got involved in this, Vic. And it was because through your Belo trial, you were able to get some phone records. And what they found was that Tom Pauken made 2 phone calls to Charles Duncan at Channel 8. What was the content of those?
That was so nice to find. Like I said before, when I was on trial for my life, we didn't know any of this stuff. We were just shooting in the dark on what we thought had happened. And it was surprising later just how right we were.
Ooh.
Just how right we were. Yeah, so it was Tom Pauken who contacted Duncan. We got Duncan's telephone number here. We got the message book. And the first conversation lasted about 7 minutes. And then Pauken placed a second call to Channel 8, and that call only lasted about a minute.
Right.
Now, that's the only 2 that we know about because there was paperwork about it.
Right.
No telling how many times they talked. But if we didn't have the paper, they weren't going to admit it.
Of course not.
You
course
know,
not.
Gary Richardson, Gary Richardson deposed Duncan for 5 or 10 days. You know, there's a limit now to 6 hours.
Are you kidding?
Oh, it was
wow!
40,
Just
50,
roasted him. Crisped
And
him.
then when we got to trial, Duncan was the first witness we called.
Wow.
Yeah, you would think you'd call me, to say, here's what happened, blah, blah. No, that's not the way Gary does it. That's not the way Gary taught me to do it. We go straight into the dragon's den. Grab that dragon by the neck and start jerking him around. And so he put Duncan on the stand first, and Duncan was on the stand for 5 or 6 days during the trial before we ever called another single witness. And he admitted on the witness stand that it was Tom Pauken who called him. We can find that testimony and stick it up on the website.
Yeah. And the purpose of the call, though, was to basically put the bug in Duncan's ear and to tell him the first lie, right? The first lie was being given to him to say, you need to come down and investigate this. Here's these lies. Here's these allegations. We have it based on the feds telling me, is that kind of how that conversation went?
I wasn't a party to that conversation.
Well, of course not.
I think that
you were just the party topic of the conversation.
I think the whole thing was get Vic Feazell because of Lucas. Get Vic Feazell because he's hurting law enforcement. Get Vic Feazell because he pissed off Jim Adams.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. Adams was the power. We've mentioned before, this could have never happened. This could have never happened if somebody else had been director of the state police back then. But because Adams had just come out of the FBI and had all those connections with people that we see in the Waco episode, connections with people at Ruby Ridge, connections with the people who burglarized Daniel Ellsberg's office over the Pentagon Papers, all that dirty deep state stuff that went on. And then they go, oh no, if you even say deep state, you're crazy.
Tinfoil hats on.
Yeah. If you say the government lies, then you're a liar. They always come back with counter accusations and trying to dehumanize you. And so I think Duncan and Pauken already knew what the deal was.
Yeah.
It was to get me with anything they could find because they didn't have anything on me. Matter of fact, we're going to get there in just a minute. Duncan writes a memo that very day that Pauken called.
Yeah.
He writes a News 8 memo to somebody named Clara, requesting that reservations be made at the Ramada Inn in Waco for Wednesday, April 24th, 1985. Remember I told you that April was a busy
It
month.
was moving quick. Well,
And when the
maybe not.
grand jury recessed for 2 weeks, remember I said a lot can happen in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that was happening. Duncan writes, I will arrive at 8:30 a.m. That's tomorrow. He also writes, it's concerning the purpose of the reservation. This is an undercover agent, wants to meet with me to talk about the district attorney, Vic Feazell, in Waco. So please make sure they understand the room has to be ready by 8:30.
Wow.
And so he was down here at the Ramada Inn on 8:30 on April the 23rd, and he met with Ron Boyer,
Right.
the guy who had told
Worked in
Jim
the
Adams
office.
about Lucas,
Mhm.
and Bill F.N. Johnson. Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, good old Bill.
Good old Bill.
Good old Bill, who was just basically a Judas to me, because I had really helped that young man. I had helped him a lot.
Hey, you
He
tried.
was a law clerk for me in law school. I gave him his first job. I didn't fire him from that job. I helped him get the job at the police department. Sorry, mainly because I wanted to get rid of him, but I helped him get it.
It's funny. Well, you know.
So Duncan meets with Bill Johnston and Ron Boyer at the Ramada Inn. On the very next day, April 24th, that's when Lucas appeared on nationwide TV on ABC's Good Morning America. I think we may have played part of that clip before,
We may.
but that's when, I can't remember her name, but her eyes are like this. She's like, looks like she's scared to death to even be talking to Henry remotely on TV. Oh my God, this Henry Lucas, you really didn't kill anybody? No, I didn't kill anybody. That news conference took place in my office, in my personal DA's office, with Lucas there. I think Maddox was there, and Guy Cox was there. Guy Cox was appointed to be Lucas's lawyer.
Right. Right.
So that really pissed him off. That really pissed him off because we were starting to saturate the word out there that Henry was saying he hadn't killed all these people and that we had the proof.
Right. And Good Morning America, that's definitely a good news outlet.
Yeah, especially back then. We didn't have 500,000 channels back then. We had 3. Yeah.
Times were dull.
So on April the 24th, the same day that Lucas does his nationwide press conference, Duncan meets with Ron Boyer and Bill Johnston. That was his meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And Duncan is told about, and we got this out of Duncan's notes.
His personal notes, right?
Yes.
It's hilarious that you got those.
He is told about a guy named Bill Simons, who they thought was dealing in stolen cars. Do you know why Bill Simons is number 1 on the list there?
No.
Because they thought he was related to Truman Simons. He was somebody who they thought was dealing in stolen cars, but they were going to try to tie him to Truman Simons.
Wow.
But Truman and Bill Simons are not related. I'm not even sure they knew each other.
That's amazing.
Bill Simons is number 1 on the list. So they were after Truman. Everybody knows that's been listening that Truman was involved in all this from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first one who mentioned to me that he thought there were problems with the Lucas confessions. He's the one who mentioned it to Carlton Stowers, who then turned us on to Hugh Ainsworth. So, and he's the one who had been pulling the Lucas records for me off of TCIC and NCIC.
When it went black.
To computer banks. Yeah.
Fade to black.
Netflix, The Confession Killer, shows that really well, where Truman is talking and the computer monitor kind of fizzles and it goes, access denied.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was Truman. So Billy Simons, no relation to Truman Simons, but he's number 1 on their list. Number 2 on their list, Darla Sadler. Now, we've
Who's
talked about
Darla?
her before. She was a secretary in my office.
Oh, yeah.
She was the one I inherited from Felipe Reyna. I don't know what she had been doing for Felipe, but she was making more money than some of the prosecutors. And she was a secretary without a law degree, making more money than most of the misdemeanor prosecutors. When I came in as DA and I saw that, I said, this ain't right. And I said, I'm going to lower your salary and spread it out amongst some of the prosecutors, you know? So I don't know what she's doing for Felipe, but when I told her that, she says to me, I'll do anything, just anything. You know, that it's almost like that old joke. If you don't lower my salary, I'd do anything.
That's
Yeah, I know. And I go,
distasteful.
no, Darla, no, I'm not going to do that. I had one guy working for me, Pat Murphy, who was making less than Darla Sadler. And Pat Murphy was a fabulous trial lawyer. Before I finally left the DA's office, he had gone from a bottom line prosecutor up to being my first assistant.
Cool.
1 year, he tried 50 felony cases and won them all in a row. Yeah, that guy was a little powerhouse. And Darla Sadler was making more than him. And so Darla Sadler is the one who had given Donnie Tidmore the nickname Cuffs. And Gary Richardson used that against him in my criminal trial. Some people call you Cuffs, don't they, Miss Detective Tidmore? And as we've talked about before, it was Tidmore who had climbed my telephone pole.
Right.
And that my ex-wife Bernie had seen coming down off the pole when they were illegally tapping my phone, and is probably the one who killed my dog, because my dog would bark whenever they'd climb the pole. But he may not have been the only one climbing that phone pole. There could have been others, but he's the one that Bernie saw. All right, so Bill Simons, Darla Sadler, there's two nothing there. Darla Sadler is saying she heard a suspect say he paid to get a case dismissed.
Right.
Whoa, yeah, Darla, give me a break. Oh, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Then the third thing is the Mark Herring case, a dismissed murder case. I don't know anything about that, but in the notes here it says wrong with an exclamation mark. So we may have to look that up later. That may not have ever been dismissed. He might have pled, but the Mark Herring does not even ring a bell. Number 4, Barbara Duty. Barbara Duty was the daughter of a lawyer in town named Tony Duty.
Mm-hmm.
She had a DWI that we gave her desk drawer probation. That was common back then. Stay out of trouble for 2 years and we won't prosecute you. Well, they were mad at Tony Duty too, because Tony Duty was taking up for me. He was saying that he thought all of this was because of the Lucas investigation. As a matter of fact, Tony Duty appeared on 60 Minutes when they came.
Right.
And they interviewed him. And they said, why do you think this investigation is going on? And he said, well, everything I hear is because of Vic Feazell looking into Henry Lucas.
Right.
But he was Barbara's dad. And so I never even got indicted over Barbara Duty, but she's on their Ramada Inn list because I think they finally figured out nothing went on there.
Right.
Judge Hodges' name is mentioned under Barbara Duty. And I don't know why that's there, but Duncan had written down Hodges under that. Then number 5, Vic's support of George Allen against Walter Smith. This is on the list that Duncan was talking with the undercover agents, with Bill Johnston and Ron Border about.
Right.
Duncan said we're undercover agents, but they weren't. He was an intelligence officer, which when you apply that to Ron Border, that's a
oxymoron.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Exactly. I'm glad you said it. Vic's support of George Allen. Well, they were mad at George Allen. So we see up here they're trying to get Truman Simons with the Bill Simons thing. And now they're looking off at George Allen. Vic's support of George Allen against Walter Smith. And Walter Smith was the federal judge by then. Walter Smith was the one who went down to Austin every day to listen to my trial from the judges' chambers down in Austin.
Right.
Judge Nallen said he had never seen another federal judge take such an interest in one of his cases.
God.
Yeah. So this is that sucker Walter Smith. And so they were wanting to investigate because I had helped George Allen get some inroads into the African-American churches in Waco, because I had preached in most of them. I knew
Right.
the pastors. They would load up their church buses and take people out to vote for me. They would.
That's cool.
And so I just asked them, while you're loading up those church buses to go vote for me, ask them to vote for my friend George Allen. And word got around, and they were mad about that.
Yeah.
But that's not illegal. It's not a federal crime. But what difference does that make? The Davidians didn't commit a federal crime. So, number 6, Jan Patterson, Austin, Assistant U.S. Attorney. That's all it says. So Jan Patterson, we know that she was at the big brass meeting. So Duncan is already hooked up with Jan Patterson. So isn't this starting to sound like Lucas? Truman Simons, who was involved in Lucas. George Allen, who was involved in Lucas. Jan Patterson, who was at the big brass meeting over Lucas. Number 7, Vic loaned himself $80,000 for his campaign. Well, that's not true. I loaned myself $60,000 to my campaign, but that's perfectly legal.
Yeah, really.
I had the money.
I said, yeah, really. I don't understand the issue here.
I don't either. I had the money. I had had some real success as a trial lawyer by then, even though I'd only been out of law school for a couple years when I ran for DA.
Right.
I'd already had some good verdicts. Gary Richardson and I had made some good money together by then. And so I loaned myself $60,000 so that I would not have to go around and beg for money from people who would want favors.
Right. Right.
I was telling everybody, I will be your lawyer. I'm the people's lawyer. I will give everybody a fair shake. The country club won't own me. The decisions won't be made out at the boardroom at the Ridgewood Country Club. They won't be made over at some, social club. There won't be. And I did not take those kinds of contributions from people.
Yeah. Excellent.
Where my opponent had his hand out for anybody that would put something in it. My opponent, who was probably doing the things I got indicted for. And we have a clip of him on the day I was indicted saying, well, any time that this kind of charge is brought against a sitting DA, he should immediately resign. Anytime his name is besmirched in any way, he should immediately resign. Well, then here comes karma some 30 years later, and people are saying the same thing about his son.
Right.
Hey, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, Fleepy.
Yep.
You shouldn't have said that. That wasn't right. I've been nice to Fleepy. We've been to lunch a couple times since then. I'm the reason Fleepy got mad and quit the Democratic Party and became a Republican. Those Democrats are so stupid, they're going to elect him. I don't want to be a Democrat anymore.
Wow.
So he quit. And so that was that. So yes, I did loan myself some money. And then number 8 was the Texas Democratic Party is investigating Feazell for money going into his political account. Totally untrue. Totally untrue. You've seen the video of the chairman of the Democratic Party, Gene Evans.
Yep.
One of my biggest supporters.
Yep.
Saying, man, they've just made sure Vic got reelected.
Right.
So none of that's true. And then the Mendez case, and I don't even know what that is.
I don't know. God knows. I don't know. So he shows up with this laundry list of these cases and these allegations, basically.
Yeah, 16 things.
16?
Wow. Things on here, and none of them did I end up getting indicted for. Oh, listen to this, number 11. No females or law students at Baylor will go to jail. Well, that's not true. It kind of depends on what you do. But I did have a policy that I wasn't going to prosecute anybody for little minor marijuana.
Right, you're not going to go ruin lives, man. It's not worth it.
I'm not going to ruin lives. I'm not going to make somebody lose their scholarship, lose their commercial driver's license over something that's silly.
Right.
Indecency with child cases almost always dismissed. Oh my God, that's the biggest lie I can ever think of. We had the highest felony conviction rate in the state of Texas.
Right.
I had one of the best prosecutors, Deanna Fitzgerald, handling these cases. She worked around the clock on these. She won them left and right and suffered a great toll on her emotionally and physically to have to see the kind of cases that she was dealing with and these little children that were hurt so bad. And we had an extremely good record on prosecuting child abuse cases, indecency cases, and physical abuse. And then he lists a few defendants here. I don't think I got indicted. Oh, I may have gotten indicted on Joe McHarg, but that's the only one I see on here I may have gotten indicted on. Oh, F and others. That might be the one. And the tractor cases.
What are the tractor cases?
Well, that's a way, I think, to try to get at Truman Simons again and to get at Jack Harwell. There was a ring of thieves going around Central Texas stealing tractors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And tractors are easier to steal than cars because you don't have to get them inspected. They don't need license plates, things like that. You got to go find the serial number on that tractor to know that's your tractor, not one that looks just like it.
Trippy.
There had been a lot of tractors stolen out of this area. And Truman Simons was assigned to work on that by Jack Harwell. And with Jack's help, Truman and Jack and Dan Weinberg, Cal Lutke, a couple of the others, man, they started recovering tractors left and right and getting them back to the farmers. I mean, we recovered over $1 million worth of tractors. Yeah. So I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Tractor cases discussed. And then they say Camille Foster discussed. I don't know why they talk about Camille Foster. She was just a local reporter at the Waco Citizen newspaper.
Maybe she was a supporter of you.
No, she wasn't. She didn't like me that much because she and my ex-wife didn't get along.
Fair enough. So it was just a laundry list, Vic. All
it's
these
just a
items
laundry
that
list.
Hand wrote down.
And none of it did I get indicted on.
Wow. So this meeting took place, Vic, and this is what we talk about, setting the stage for this media blitz against you. So at this point, they met, they gave Duncan a bunch of ammo and said, here's what you're going to do. Investigate it, run the stories while the grand jury's going on with Lucas, and let's start creating some turmoil, some chaos.
That's what they did. And by the time my grand jury came back 2 weeks later, they didn't want to hear about Lucas that first day. They wanted to hear about me.
Wild.
What is all this stuff we're hearing about you, Vic?
Right.
Why are we in this grand jury and now all of a sudden we're hearing that you're a crook? Well, because they don't want this coming out, people.
Right.
I've recommended before, go watch The Report. It's on Amazon. You'll see what happens to the whistleblowers. And I was a whistleblower here. I had the balls to cross that thin blue line, that law enforcement brotherhood.
And didn't you, just to sidestep that, didn't you just see too, an article came out this past week about the top Netflix documentaries, and Confession Killer was on there, right? It was like number 9 of the top 15.
Of the top 20.
Top 20?
Top 20 of not of last year. the top 20 of all time.
That's amazing.
Now, when you're talking about all time of Netflix, what's that, 10, 12 years, 15
Yeah.
years? Maybe?
Yeah. If you're going back to when you used to get the DVD in the mail days.
The top 20 Netflix documentaries or crime movies at all. And Confession Killer's number 9.
That's wild.
Number 1 being the top one.
That's
Confession
amazing.
Killer is number 9. So anyway, Duncan goes back to Dallas. He writes a memo to Marty Haig and to Doug Fox. They were management at Channel 8, and tells them what's going on and asks them for more money, which they gave to him for the Vic Feazell investigation.
I got this hot case. I need to investigate it.
Got this hot case. I got to tell you a funny story about Doug Fox, though. See, we took Marty Haig's deposition. We had Marty Haig on the witness stand. We took Doug Fox's deposition. I think we did anyway. May have had him on the witness stand. He was high up in management with Channel 8, and he and I got into it a couple times. And I don't remember when George Bush got elected governor, but for some strange reason, I was living in Austin then, and I'd already gotten the Below verdict and had moved to Austin, had plenty of money, and I get an invitation to the governor's inaugural ball.
Nice.
George Bush's inaugural ball, man. Yeah. By then, Bush and Pauken weren't getting along. They kind of got crossways with each other when Pauken got crossways with Karl Rove.
Yeah. Don't mess with Rove.
But Bernie and I are at the inaugural ball, and there's a guy with a reporter and a camera, and they're walking around interviewing people. And I say to Bernie, I said, "That's not a reporter. That's Doug Fox. That's the manager from Channel 8." And he was down there, doing doing his celebrity thing because he was at the ball that George Bush was at. I mean, there were several balls around town, like the presidential balls, but this was the main ball.
Yeah.
I paid a lot of money for that ticket, but I wanted to go. And so anyway, Doug Fox sees me. He thinks he knows me, but he doesn't recognize me. I'd already lost a little more weight by then. And he walks over and he says, puts the microphone right in my face with a camera right there. And he says, "Well, tell me your name and what brings you to the governor's ball." And I said, "Doug, I'm Vic Feazell." Word.
Hear that record scratch?
It was. He spun
microphone
on his heels. He grabbed the reporter by the arm, and they walked off, man. He never looked back.
Whoopsies.
I got a real laugh about that. So that was some years later. That was in the 90s. So anyway, on April 24th, 1985, that's when also Henry Lucas is driven to San Antonio by Jack Harwell. And
Civil rights violation, Vic. You violating his civil rights.
I know. And we didn't even know why they were taking Henry down there.
Like, what do you want
We
for?
asked, and they wouldn't tell.
Yeah.
Back on April the 22nd, Jim Maddox accused U.S. Attorney Helen Eversberg of either purposely or inadvertently attempting to subvert the state investigation of Lucas. And then Eversberg tells the Dallas Times-Herald that she only wants to take Lucas before a federal grand jury in San Antonio, but she refuses to say why or what prompted it.
Right.
So they're taking Lucas to San Antonio, taking him away from me, taking him away from Sheriff Harwell, from Judge Allen, and taking him away from our Attorney General.
Right.
And they won't tell us why.
Right. We've talked about this a couple of times in the past, how he basically gets down there and your future is in the hands of a one-eyed drifter. And he tells the truth and says, no, they're not violating any of my civil rights. Matter of fact, they're the first ones to give me a lawyer.
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
But listen to this. See, they wouldn't let his lawyer in either. Guy Cox was standing out in the parking lot with me and Jim Maddox. They wouldn't let us in the building. They wouldn't let his lawyer in the building.
It's crazy.
They tell us he's there just to talk to the grand jury. But he was interviewed before he went to the grand jury. As soon as he got into the courthouse, they took him off into a private room. And before his appearance before Judge Prado or before the grand jury, and we got this from Henry Lucas after we got him back, he was interviewed by Greg Rampton.
Yeah.
That's Greg Rampton. Ruby Ridge, Greg Rampton. Planting the false evidence in my house, Greg Rampton. And Lucas said Rampton really tried to get him to say that we were violating his civil rights in Waco. But Lucas states that he does not feel that his civil rights were ever violated by anyone connected with the McLennan County District Attorney's Office or the State Attorney General's Office, and that these people are assisting me in establishing the truth.
Boom.
That's what he told Greg Rampton, and that made Greg Rampton angry. Also present was an assistant U.S. attorney by the name of Larry Matthews. Now, Lucas did say, though, I never asked for my lawyer, but that's because I'm so used to talking to law enforcement without a lawyer, I just didn't think to ask. You know what that?
No.
They also did not tell him that he was entitled to his lawyer.
Right. Dirty.
Dirty. So Henry Lucas testified for 4 hours before that federal grand jury in San Antonio and then was returned to Waco.
Done.
Because he would not budge. Lucas wouldn't budge, not with Judge Prado, not with Rampton, not with the grand jury.
Thank goodness.
Now, I don't know what would have happened if Maddox and I had let them have Lucas the week before.
Right. When they first knocked on your door, the agents showed up, FBI agents.
And like I described it like we were a couple of old sheriffs standing in front of the jail door not letting the mob in. We said no. I didn't tell them what to do, their court order, but we certainly did not comply with it. And we bought enough time through our appeals all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States that they didn't get Lucas down there until right before the grand jury. And then Rampton interviewed him. Otherwise, Boutwell would have been on him with all his psychological twisting and trying to get Lucas to change his mind.
Right.
And I don't know if the truth would have ever come out. Would have had people like Chris Piazza, would have had people like Bob and Joyce Lemons, and a bunch of other witnesses who said, there's no way this person killed my loved one, and this is how I know.
Right.
We had
Crazy.
Hugh Ainsworth's article, but if this grand jury had not been able to continue, Hugh's article would have been yesterday's news.
Right.
And they were already criticizing me and Hugh both because now they did this on the Pawkins show and they did it with the Waco newspaper. They were criticizing me and Hugh Ainsworth because we had not pointed out the inconsistencies in Lucas's travel records.
Right.
What?
Right.
There weren't any inconsistencies in his travel record. He wasn't traveling except for out to California and then to Montague and then to Florida and then back to Montague. You know, it wasn't that, I could get from here to Alaska in 3 hours kind of BS. You know, and they were wanting us to buy that.
Yeah. That was one of the things that they kept saying, though, Vic, is when they'd go on Pawkins' show and whatnot, they kept saying, well, how come Feazell and his office never asked us to come to the grand jury and testify? How come Feazell never came to us with these inconsistencies? Like, they're constantly hitting you with, why didn't you come back to the task force and tell us these issues? You know, that's crazy. It's like,
why didn't we
you guys are the issue. Why would I come to you to let you know I discovered your lie?
That's like asking the fox with the feathers in its mouth, do you know what happened to the chicken? And the fox goes, no. And we go, oh, okay, well, we'll leave.
That's
No,
always
we
blew
did
my mind.
invite them to the grand jury, Boutwell and Prince, and they both showed up and they both testified. Colonel Adams came to the grand jury too, the day that it shut down.
Interesting.
Yeah. He came up the day that George Allen pulled the plug on our grand jury. It was him in the office with George Allen. I don't know what all was said, but George knew what was happening to me by then. And so Adams was in the office with George Allen, when the plug was pulled on our grand jury. And then that very same night was the first Duncan episode on Channel 8. So we see the news of Henry, the back of his head disappearing in that car. And they took him back to Georgetown.
Right.
They didn't take him to TDC.
Oh, business as usual, Vic.
No, business as usual. That's exactly what Boutwell said. It's going to be business as usual. And they tried every way they could for about a week to twist his arm into confessing again and it having business as usual. So Adams was there when the grand jury plug was pulled, and that was the same day that the Duncan series started, which Adams was the inception of through his buddy Pawkin and their contact at Channel 8, Charles Duncan. Okay, during the Below trial, we were able to get some documents out of DPS, and one of them was a memo by Ron Border, where he met at the DPS headquarters in Austin with DPS Commander W.A. Cowan, DPS Assistant Commander Joe Murphy, FBI Supervisor A.L. Robinson, FBI Agent Bob Zane, his name will come up a lot later, IRS Criminal Investigation Supervisor Bob Morgan, that's the guy who threatened Whitney Fanning,
Right.
and Assistant U.S. Attorney Jan Patterson, and DPS Sergeant Tommy Davis. The memo states the purpose of this meeting was a discussion of allegations and possible evidence that alleges that the McLennan County District Attorney Vic Feazell may be dismissing misdemeanor and felony criminal cases for financial gain. Listen to that sentence. Allegations of possible evidence that may allege. That's an inference upon an inference upon an inference.
Yeah, that's pretty.
You can't do that.
Thin.
You can put an inference on an inference, but you can't put an inference on an inference on an inference. No, I'm sorry. You can draw an inference, but you can't put an inference on an inference. That's too far.
That's too far.
That's too far. That's an inference too far. So what are they saying? What are they saying here, though? They also want to talk about allegations that Truman Simons had stolen bugging equipment from the Waco Police Department and that the grand jury room was bugged. What?
I mean,
now, if Truman Simons had stolen bugging equipment from the police department, that'd have gotten him long before then, because he had already been gone from the police department for since '82, for 2 or 3 years. And why on earth would we want to bug the grand jury room
when it's already being recorded anyways?
It's all being recorded except for the deliberations.
Right.
And when you go in there, if they say true bill, you know how the deliberations went. It's an indictment. If they say no bill, you know how it went. There's not an indictment. And everything else the prosecutor can be in there for. So why on earth? This is the stupidest damn thing I've ever read. And this is from allegedly competent law enforcement people. So they're after Truman Simons again. If they can't get him on stolen cars or being related to Bill Simons, then they're going to get him for bugging the grand jury room.
Wow.
And allegations that Sheriff Jack Harwell and a deputy, possibly Dan Weinberg, may be involved in the fencing of stolen merchandise.
Wow. It's basically your whole team. They're trying to assassinate each one of them with some kind of allegation.
My whole team. Now, Jack Harwell
Crazy.
and Van Weinberg were the ones who drove down to Georgetown and took Henry away from the task force.
Right.
So not only were they after me, they're after George Allen, they're after Jack Harwell, they're after Truman Simons, and even after Dan Weinberg.
Right. Crazy. It's crazy, but it's what I find most amazing though is that you actually have all the proof because we have these interoffice memos, we have handwritten notes that are actually showing exactly what went behind the scenes. You know, in this day and age, most information is just a computer file that's instantly deleted and hidden. This,
Yeah.
at least, there were paper copies of this stuff to where
Yeah.
we can actually prove exactly how this scheme was put together. And in today's episode, we got to see how the media was contacted and engaged by the higher ups instantly to Mr. Pauken, who instantly went over to Channel 8. That started that investigation. You start to see how in Austin and other law enforcement agencies, these seeds were being planted, that you were taking bribes ultimately, and that you had, you know, these criminals that were in this enterprise around you, which is what Jim Adams says. You know, Vic was running a criminal enterprise, and this is how it all was created, exactly to the T, to the meetings and to the memos.
You're absolutely right, Jonathan. Good thumbnail sketch of what we just said.
Hi, I'm Vic Feazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Feazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Feazell.